revenue generator, which is
Raised 50. The newspaper guys right there.
You're, so we're getting some money back.
Did we get it straightened out, or are they still putting the spent rods on site?
Oh, Yucca Mountain's not usable. It never came to fruition, but we had to pay into it.
Right.
So
So
they've been collecting money on something that, they had no right collecting money on.
right,
We
This is
can
the
go back 4 years.
New train.
right.
yeah.
There's
Is it,
a lot
is
of
it the
that
nuclear
going on.
disposal?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
All right, we ready?
Ready.
All right.
Let's call this meeting to order. This is a public hearing on House Bill 581, Thursday, February 20th. Let the record reflect all members of council are present, with the exception of Mr. Boyce and Ms. Brown. And I'm going to turn it over directly to Logan.
Thank you, Mayor, and I apologize that y'all have to hear this for the fourth time, but it's okay. Get information for the folks that are joining us. So House Bill 581, as you know, is a new bill that will place limits on the assessed values of homesteaded properties. We'll call them caps as we move through this. So basically what that'll do is it'll cap your ability, or not your ability, but the tax assessor's ability to increase your homesteaded property value at a maximum of 3%. But this home value increase will be tied to something like a CPI, even though that hasn't been totally set yet, but chances are it'll be a local CPI. And so in this slide, I use the example of 1.8%. If that's what the CPI is, that's what they'll set it at in the spring of each year when you get out your assessments. It also provides for a possible floating local option sales tax, aka a FLOST, which is a potential way that local governments can recoup some of the money lost to the value limitations should there be an opt-in. And as you know, if the county, although we're in a unique situation with Walton County, or all the cities don't all sing from the same sheet of music. Everybody's going to opt in. All it takes is one to kind of to throw that out, and everybody opts out. But Walton County has a fixed cap, so theirs is actually stronger than the HB 581. So therefore, they had to opt out. So there's a lot of confusion on that with Walton County. As you know, we had to advertise, have 3 public hearings. This is the 3rd and final public hearing. And again, if you don't opt out, you're automatically opted in. And then we have to package everything up, send it to the Secretary of State's office by March 1st if we pass the resolution to opt out. And that is on the agenda tonight following this public hearing. This does not mean that taxes will automatically increase if we opt out. You all still control the millage rate, okay? And again, this has no effect on existing senior school tax exemptions. Sorry about that, got a little behind. All right, so let's talk about the FLOST. The FLOST was offered as a revenue replacement. The problem came about when we had the November referendum. They were not tied together, the FLOST and the original referendum for HB 581. The original referendum passed pretty well, as you would expect when offering homesteaded caps. The issue is that if we opted in, we would then have to go back for yet another referendum, either later this year or next year, as applicable, to offer a floating local option sales tax to be implemented. Okay, we have to set up an IGA, an intergovernmental agreement, with Walton County and all the other cities for how that is dispersed. As you know, going through the local option sales tax negotiations, we don't have all the power, so the county would control a lot of those negotiations and discussions for their percentage breakout. So there's a chance that we, even if we were able to implement a FLOST and get voter approval on the back end, that we may not get the full replacement value from what we lose in HB 581 year after year. I'm not saying that's the case, but that's a potential. We just don't know. And again, extra sales taxes don't have a traditionally good end result for the cities in the county here. We've been through a couple T-SPLOSTs over the past few years. Those didn't do well, so it's kind of like if we opt in, well, then we're capping ourselves. And then if we go for a FLOST and it fails, we don't have any way to recoup that money. And again, school systems opted out because they could not participate in a FLOST under the bill. So, moving on, local control, that's kind of what this is really all about. Monroe's initial cost in the first year under HB 581 would be about $51,000. That's how much we would kind of lose in general raw tax dollars. But this would increase each year as the market conditions change, as price appreciation occurs. So in a decade, this could easily equal hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. So another thing we need to keep in mind is the tax loss burdens would then be shifted to commercial properties and especially rental properties. We're a heavy rental property city, unlike a city like Loganville. So where is the tax burden going to shift to? That has to be made up somewhere to ensure that you have adequate services. This could also imperil city councils of the future, since they'll be in a precarious position to have to raise the millage rate in order to maintain those service levels, much less increase any service levels. So if you need to add police officers, firefighters, streets, parks caretakers, that's going to be that much harder to do because you're going to be forced to not really grow into your digest. You're going to have to start messing with your millage rate a little bit more. That digest kind of becomes artificial over time. Overall, the home values too will become largely out of sync with actual value. So let's think 20 years into the future, a home that may have moved up a maximum of 3% per year in total value, will be paying, far less than the homeowner who just purchased next to you. So you could have somebody who bought for $250,000 next to you in the future, somebody who paid $1 million, and they're gonna have radically different property taxes. So you're gonna have some inequity there. We also have to think about the future borrowing costs for infrastructure. So as you know, when we go to market, we're rated by the insurance ratings agencies out of New York. And what they look at is how easy is it for you to recoup that money? So even our revenue bonds on the utilities are backed by the full faith and credit of the taxpayer. So if something happens on the utility side, taxes are the fallback. So when they rate us, they want to see, have there been any significant hurdles in order for you to raise that millage rate in order to adequately make their debt payments? So they're going to look at that. And then lastly, opting in is a decision that really permanently cedes some taxing authority to the state rules. This is a forever bill. They're saying once you're in, you're in. Once you're out, you're out. Here is a slide that kind of shows what would have happened if HB 581 was in effect back in 2021. We would have had a tax loss of about $1.9 million, close to $1.9 million in total raw dollar value in that time period. So we heard the voters, it passed. I mean, obviously Homestead's very popular. So subsequent to an opt-out, the city can also request that legislation be introduced through our local legislative delegation to create a Monroe-specific homestead exemption. I think only Loganville in our area, in our county, has a city-specific homestead. So what I would propose is we could create a $5,000 homestead exemption for any qualified homeowner. And this would, at first, cost just a little bit more than HB 581, around $65,000, but it wouldn't compound as unequally over time with the HB 581 scheme of capping the taxes, or capping the values. So we've estimated there's around 1,933 eligible properties in the city that as of today, it'll probably grow a little bit more and eclipse that 2,000 sometime in the next couple of years. But with our own homestead exemption, you all as council control it. You will be able to say, hey, we need to increase it to 10,000 or 15,000 as the years progress. It creates a known value as you move forward based on budgets and based on needs, and it keeps our control here locally. There could also be some future legislation that will address the mess that we've kind of been talking about for a few months now. It's a patchwork of different yays and nays as to what they're doing with HB 581. I'd say around 80% are probably opting out. The ones that are opting in are doing it for a variety of reasons. The ones that are opting out are sometimes doing it for a variety of reasons. So I think that there will probably be some sort of other legislative remedies coming down the pipeline in the future too. So, my recommendation, and we've talked about it for a while, is let's just not jump into this because it is a forever issue if there is a chance of it getting fixed. And if opt-in jurisdictions fail to pass a FLOST en masse, there could be calls for better alternatives for revenue stability in the future with new legislation as well. So that's something that's kind of been talked about in the back channels as well. I'll be happy to take any questions that you may have. I did want to note too, I think we talked about it at our retreat, that the total homestead, or the average homestead tax bill for the city of Monroe is $870.56. So a lot of people generally misplace the blame as to where all the property taxes are going. I think we all know it goes to the Board of Education, and they have their own reasons for what they do. We won't get into any of that, but that is the average homesteaded bill to the city of Monroe.
And generally, you have, if you're in the city, you have 20% going to the city, 20% going to the county, and 60% going to the school board.
That's about right.
So, something to think about. The other thing, the reason that I'm leaning toward the opting out is the finality of their bill versus what we can do, number one. And number two, how quickly do you think we could implement our own?
Yeah,
How soon can we offer?
it's doubtful it could get into this session, right?
I would,
But we're,
I can't imagine.
yeah, I don't see that happening. We're kind of running out of time in the Gold Dome session.
Right.
So, but we can go ahead and start drafting everything up, so that we can drop that bill first thing next year when they open back up.
That's really something I think we need to do. But are there any questions for Logan? Any comments for Logan? Thank you, Logan. I'll declare this portion of the meeting open for the purpose of public input. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of opting out of House Bill 581? Is there anyone here who would like to speak against opting out of House Bill 581? Thank you. Hearing none, I'll declare that portion of the meeting closed, and we can move to new business. This is the resolution to opt out of House Bill 581. Logan, would you read it, please?
Sure can. So, resolution by the city of Monroe, Georgia, to opt out of the homestead exemption pursuant to OCGA 48.5, 44.2. Whereas Georgia Code OCGA 48.5, 44.2, effective January 1st, 2025, creates a statewide homestead exemption from ad valorem taxes levied by, for, or on behalf of the state or any county, consolidated government, municipality, or local school district in this state. And whereas, more specifically, OCGA 48.5, 44.2I authorizes governing authority or any county, consolidated government, municipality, or school district to opt out of the homesteaded exemption otherwise granted with respect to such political subdivision through certain procedures and the adoption of a resolution by March 1st, 2025. And whereas the city of Monroe, Georgia, the city desires to opt out of the homestead exemption otherwise granted. And whereas the city has complied with the requisite procedures pursuant to OCGA 48.5, 44.2I, including but not limited to holding at least 3 public meetings on the intent to opt out, placing the required advertisement in a newspaper of general circulation and on its website as required. Now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and city council of the city of Monroe, Georgia, hereby opt out of the homestead exemption otherwise granted by OCGA 48-544.2. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall become effective upon approval by the mayor and city council of the city. Be it further resolved that the city of Monroe city clerk is hereby directed to provide a copy of this resolution to the Georgia Secretary of State no later than March 1st, 2025.
Thank you. Mr. Probst, I'll entertain a motion, please.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes unanimously. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Malcolm. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.